All right, you guys. So we are going to be going over a couple of the games from last night in round 5 of the National Open played in Las Vegas, one of the first major open tournaments to come back since the pandemic started. So we're going to be going over a couple of games. We're going to go over the games of Levy. We're going to be going over the games of Hans Neimann and also a game between Josh Posthuma and Andrew Tang. All right, you guys. So we'll start with the Levy game. Okay, so c4 is played here. c4, e6, knight c3. Knight f6, knight f3, d5. Levy plays e3. Pretty standard stuff. I mean, both sides are just playing normal moves. Black plays a queen's gambit decline setup with knight f6, e6, and d5. So Levy plays e3, bishop d6, b3. So it's a little bit different, but it does end up transposing back into main lines because after castles, bishop b2, c6, Levy plays pawn to d4 here. And this is sort of where it turns back into just you could have this occur out of, say, a position like this, for example, d4 castles, b3, c6, also very logical. So pretty standard. After d4 we transpose back into the main lines. So b6, queen c2, bishop b7, bishop to d3 played here, knight bd7, castles, queen e7, all very normal, not much that I really have to say here. The round starts in about 45 minutes, you guys, very soon. So rook a d1, rook f d8. Now this is already the first spot where I feel like it shows a little bit of a lack of understanding. From Christopher Yu in terms of how he approaches this, because most of the action is going to revolve around one of two things. Either white's going to take on d5 or white's going to play for e4 here. So it makes more sense to put the rook on c8 to try and really force the c5 move through versus, say, putting a rook on d8 first. So I would have preferred rook a c8. Additionally, the other thing that black has to realize is what white wants to take on d5 or play e4. The concepts for black here are either push c5 and open the diagonal or to push e5. So if you're going to move the rook from d8 or from f8 rather, it probably makes more sense to put the rook on e8 and try to force the e5 through. So rook d8 is not a move that I'm very fond of. So rook f d8, e4, correct move by Levy. Of course, he forces e4 in before black is able to play c5 and open up the diagonal. So e4 takes, knight takes, and now knight takes, queen takes, all pretty standard. Knight f6 moves the knight out of the way, attack the queen to h4, and this is where we see the first sign of sort of a lack of awareness or positional understanding. And one thing that I will stress about these games is that, you know, a lot of modern day chess is about preparation. You do a lot of preparation, and the computers tell you what the best moves are. And when you do too much of that sort of preparation, sometimes you lose the natural feel for tactics and sort of the piece play in the positions. Because here, bishop a3 is a very bad move. Now there are situations where bishop a3 makes a lot of sense. Why is positional understanding bad? Because you hit spacebar and the computer tells you the best move. So we sort of lose our creativity and our ability to come up with the best moves at various times. And I'll give you an example. So what Christopher Yu was thinking here, when he plays bishop a3, he was comparing it to, say, I'll give you an example. He was comparing it to, say, I'll give you a perfect example. Comparing it to some sort of Slav. Let's just say, what's an example? I'm just trying to think what an example is. So knight f3, knight f6, knight c3, something like this, for example. Let's say you get some position like this, and you got something kind of like this, for example. And what you'll notice is that in a position like this, in many cases it makes sense to play rook d1, and white will oftentimes play a3 to prevent it. But the difference is that in this sort of position, there's one big difference. First of all, the light square bishops are off the board, so there's no bishop targeting h7, and there's no bishop on b7 here. So there's one less set of bishops on the board here. So in a situation like this, the idea of bishop a3 makes a lot of sense. But when you get to this position with bishop a3 here, there are light square bishops on the board, and the bishop actually ends up just very offsides because, of course, white is never going to trade. And now the problem is when you play c5 to open up the diagonal, your bishop is now cut off from the defense by the pawn on c5, which is in the way. So now you can't retreat with your bishop on a3. So that's why bishop a3 is actually a very serious. Maybe it's not a blunder that loses, but it's not a good move. So bishop a1 was played here, c5 is played, and now d5 played here by Levy. Again, a very good move, absolutely the best move here. You don't want to take on c5, because if you take, black just takes back with the bishop, and he has two bishops on very nice diagonals here. So d5 is very thematic. It's the move that you look to play in these positions. E takes d5, bishop d3 is played here by Levy. Another perfect move again. You don't really want to take the pawn here on d5 because you would lose your bishop for starters, but also it makes a lot of sense to line up the double ops here that white has from a1 and d3. Also, black plays d4 here, which I don't think is insanely, maybe it is just bad. To close the diagonal, white can play bishop h7. You cannot recapture because you would lose your queen on e7. Levy took 18 minutes to play d5. Okay. Yeah, d5 should have just been played instantly, but anyway, it's a slow game. You can't really critique that much. So bishop d3, Christopher Yu plays h6, and now rook fe1 is played here by Levy. Christopher Yu plays queen d6. Levy correctly takes. Again, you'll see even though black is temporarily up a pawn, the bishop on a3 is very out of play, and also there still are a lot of problems here. White has perfect placement of the rooks, queen is very well placed, and the two bishops are additionally on perfect squares as well. So knight takes d5 played here by Christopher. Levy goes bishop e5. Very good move as well. Queen e7 and now queen g3. Of course, you don't want to trade queens. You're down a pawn. So queen g3 is the best move. Queen to f8 played here to stop the checkmate pattern. And now Levy plays knight g5 here, and this is sort of a big mistake. Not the right move to play here. Now knight h4 is a good move here, and white is much better. Maybe even winning after it. Now the thing is, I do kind of wonder why Levy didn't go knight h4, because the thing is, knight g5, it looks very sort of aggressive and attacking, but the thing is that I guess, like, I mean, it feels kind of wrong to me. Like, it feels very and this is the difference between like a player like me and a player like Levy, is that to me intuitively I can feel that it's wrong. Like, I can feel right off without even doing any deep analysis. I have that feel that the move is not good, that there has to be some resource for black here that that holds the game. So like that is one of those things, is like it would have worked after queen h3. After queen h3, no, it doesn't. You just go knight f6, takes, and rook d3, and you just lose. So like it's kind of hard, because there are moments in the game of chess when you need to sort of just intuitively sense and feel it versus trying to do pure calculations. And so it is kind of surprising, because to me, like, intuitively the way I would approach this is, obviously I would think about it, but I can intuitively feel that it's wrong. I can feel it's wrong. Oh, he missed rook d. Oh, actually Levy missed Levy missed. Oh, okay. Actually, you know what? That's much better. That's a much better reasoning. If that's true that Levy said he missed rook d3, that's okay. That's much better then. Okay, so Levy just missed the tactic, and then he on the fly he was able to change it around. Okay, that at least is reasonable. That makes sense. Is that he thought queen h3 was winning, and it's not. Okay. So yeah. So okay, that makes sense. However, I would say again though, that in this position, knight h4 is a very logical move, where white tries to put the knife on f5. Again, one thing you'll notice is that, and this Alpha Zero has taught us this in particular, is that when you get a big initiative attack here, it doesn't really matter how much you're down in material if you have like open diagonals for bishops. So yeah, no, I don't think you want to be fancy. I think Levy missing knight f6 makes a lot of sense, because queen g5, like, I mean, it just doesn't look right. It doesn't look right at all. So anyway, so hg5, Levy plays queen g5, Christopher Yu goes knight e7, Levy plays queen h5, and Christopher Yu here makes a huge mistake. He plays pawn to f5 here. A very, very bizarre move. Very bizarre move that I really don't I don't know. It depends which me is looking at this game. If this is the me looking at this game thinking that Christopher Yu is supposed to be one of the future talents of American chess, like one of the great players who could become 2700 or a world champion caliber player, I will be much harsher in my criticism of this move than if I'm just looking at this game thinking about it as IM's playing the game. But f5 is a terrible move here. It's inexplicable. I would say that in this position, knight g6 is the obvious first move, but additionally rook takes d3 also makes quite a bit of sense as well. Whereas f5, all it does here is open up the diagonals towards your king. Like, when you look at this position after bishop c4, Christopher Yu plays bishop d5, Levy sacks correctly here. And now the problem is that basically, again, it feels like even maybe you can survive, but it feels really, really dangerous. He was scared of the rook lift, sure, but I mean, it's not rocket science. Knight g6, rook e3. You go queen e8 and you have queen c6. Like, if bishop g7, you have queen c6. Like, it's not rocket science. Oh, sorry, I didn't mean to do that. But I that's what I would say. Like, knight g6 is a very I know it's to me it's an obvious move. I mean I'm just gonna say that, and you can get mad at me for saying that, but it's an obvious move. It's just an obvious move. So again, that's what I would say. But f5 is played. Bishop c4, bishop d5, rook d5, knight d5, and now Levy plays rook d1. Very good moves from Levy, by the way. He finds he sort of feels the intuition of the attack here versus needing to do the pure calculations, which is really good because it would be very easy here after bishop d5 to be scared and afraid of, well, if I sag another rook, like I don't see the win on the spot, so I'm not sure. But Levy feels the he sort of has the intuition and can feel the attack coming on here, so he does this. Rook d1, queen e8, and now queen takes f5. Also here, by the way, queen f7 is the only move here to try and survive. Queen e8 is a terrible move. If you go queen f7, I mean, white's still better, obviously, after like queen f3 and like rook d5, bishop d5, but it's still not over because it's even number of pawns. So like if you get some position like b5, bishop d5, takes, white is better, but again, like I said, 1 2 3 4 5, 1 2 3 4 5, even material. So queen e8 is a really bad move because now after queen f5, now you don't even have the protection. Like if we go back one move to this position, you'll notice that here the pawn is in the way, so the queen can't really laterally attack this knight on d5 here because you have this in the way. But after you play queen e8, queen f5, now there's nothing in the way, so it's just white just has to move the bishop and excavate the knight on d5 here. So queen c6 is played here. Levy plays rook d5, perfect move. Many moves win here, but this is the best. Also, I would say, again, very disappointing Christopher Yu here that he did not play either b5 or queen f7. Mind you, in this position, white is obviously winning here because you can't take the rook, so queen g7. And here it's 1 2 3 4 5 versus 1 2 3 4 5, or 1 2 3 4 versus 1 2 3 4 5. So this is why giving up that pawn was really inexplicable on the f5 square. But very disappointing to see queen c6 from Christopher Yu because I would expect better defense. I would expect much better defense. So queen c6, Levy takes, plays queen g5, and now the rest is pretty routine. Black cannot move the rook back, so it put the king in check. You can't really move the queen because then I take the rook with check. And if you take the bishop, obviously I have checkmate here. So it's basically just over. So king f7 is played here. Levy plays bishop takes g7. Actually, whoa, I didn't look at the whole game, but last night when I looked through the game, or not looked through it, but when I was watching it live, I kind of stopped looking right around here. I figured he would just win. Bishop g7 is not the best move here. King e6 is played, but the queen e5. I guess computer says, what does computer say? You have queen g6. Yeah, you have queen g6. Another little tricky idea to keep it very complicated. So after queen d5, king g7, queen a8. I mean, white is still winning here. Obviously, you're up 2 pawns, but the game is not over on the spot. So he goes king e6. Bishop g7. I mean, there's no reason not to play it because you can't put the rook on d8 to protect the rook, so the queen covers it. So it's pretty straightforward. So king e6 is played, queen e5, king d7, bishop d5, queen g6, bishop e4, queen e8, queen d5, king e7, queen e8, and Christopher Yu resigns the game here in lieu of the fact that he's going to be down at least 1 bishop at the end of this position, is what I would say. So could a human see bishop b8? Yeah, I think, but see, the thing is here, it's a fielder's choice. I mean, bishop c7 probably wins, bishop b8 wins, bishop g7 wins, bishop a1 wins. I mean, bishop c3 wins, bishop b2. I mean, literally any bishop move wins here. This wins, this wins, this wins, this wins, this wins, this wins. And I mean, like, I think even bishop d6 wins. Like, literally any bishop move wins here. So yeah, it's just a fielder's choice. But you should be careful, and I would say this is the kind of the thing that I would say as well that's important to note is that one thing you have to be careful of, though, is you have to be very careful because someone who's like 2600, and this is what I've alluded to with like Jordan Van Forest specifically, is that a 2600 or 2700 player will find the best defense. Like if you play bishop g7, Magnus would play queen g6. I would play queen g6. All the 2700 guys, because we're so resourceful, we would find queen g6 here, and it's still winning for white, but you would still have to win the game, where it's not over on the spot. So that's what I would say, which it's important sometimes to keep that in mind. Bishop e8 is pretty cute though. It is. So there's 50 people in the world ranking that are like that. Yeah, but it's not about the world ranking. It's about trying to be as precise as you can. because it's a position where if Levy plays bishop b8 here, he wins this game. It doesn't matter, it's me, Magnus, whomever, he wins the game on the spot. Whereas after bishop g7, it's winning, but there's still work to be done. So that's kind of the point. So anyway, very nice win for Levy though. A pretty good game other than knight g5. I will say from Levy's standpoint, if he didn't play knight g5, I don't think he would have won this game. That's the funny thing. At the same time, I would say that looking at the other way, very disappointing from Christopher Yu, in my opinion. He's supposed to be one of the he's supposed to be one of the bright juniors who's the future of American chess. And this game showed a lot of sort of a lack of understanding in many ways. Bishop a3 was bad, didn't understand the pawn break with c5, didn't understand the counterplay with d5, and also he didn't defend against the sacrifice / blunder by Levy as well. So I would say from Christopher, from that standpoint, disappointing. Well, why should I stop criticizing him? I would say that, I mean, it depends which hat I have on. Do I have the hat on that he's the future of American chess, or do I have the hat on that he's an IM? And I do have very, very high hopes for him, so that's why I'm going to be overly critical. So let's move on to the next game. So the next game is between Hans Neimann and Attilio Shetty. Okay, so this game starts with d4 d5, c4 c6. Hans plays knight to f3, knight to f6 played here, knight to c3, e6, bishop to g5, knight bd7, c takes d5, e takes d5. Keep being critical of push him to his potential. Well, yeah, I mean, we live in a world where you're not supposed to be critical of anyone, apparently, but I would say that's the truth. Like, you know, that should provide motivation to him, if anything. That should really, like, if anything, fire him up and give him motivation. So I have the exact opposite approach. So cd5, ed5, e3 is played here. H6 played. Bishop h4, g5. So kind of a little bit strange by Attilio here. We have a queen's gambit decline, sort of. Black can play bishop d6 or bishop e7. He plays g5, and I think the idea is to go knight h5. Now this is kind of playable, but I think that in general it's a little bit dubious. So bishop d3, or not bishop d3, sorry, bishop e5, knight f6, bishop e2, knight takes e5, knight takes e5 played here. Knight d7, knight to d3 played. Bishop g7 played by Attilio. Hans plays bishop g4. I don't know if this is the best move, but it's a logical move because black wants to play f5. Black wants to castle and play f5 and f4 at some point. So bishop b4 is a logical move. Castles, bishop to f5. Queen to f6 played here. Pawn to g4. And now knight to b6 is played here by Attilio. Bishop takes c8. Bishop takes c8 by Hans. Knight takes c8. Black wants to reroute the knight to d6. From d6, you can go to c4. You also hold the e4 square as well, so white can't ever break the center. So it's a very, very nice rerouting of knight d6. H4, knight d6 is played here. Hg5, hg5. Queen to e2 played here. Also, I'm going to say something else because someone's saying about knight h4, or someone says something. Like, the fact is that it's very easy after the game with computers to know what the best moves are and to talk about them. But if honestly, if you think it's the best move during the game, you would play the move. So when people say things about, like, you know, about knight h4, you know, Levy says, you know, he's going to play it and then he didn't play it. Like, if it's the best move, you'd play the move. It's just that simple. So, I mean, you guys who are acting like these moves somehow magically come out of thin air, like, I mean, come on, seriously. So queen e2, rook f8 is played here. Castles, knight to e4, queen to c2, rook a c8 played here. King to b1, pawn to b6. No, actually, you know what I would say? about Christopher Yu? You know what I would say about Christopher Yu? In terms of Christopher Yu, what he needs to do to avoid having that happen, he has to work on the pawn structures and be much more set in his opening theory. Because it's very clear the reason that he lost the game is he didn't understand the structure very well. And because he didn't understand the structure, he played this move bishop a3 and c5, and he underestimated all the play in the center of the board. So if he's going to play those sorts of lines, he has to understand the pawn structure a little bit better. So knight e4, rook e4, knight to e5 is played here. Queen to e6 played by Attilio. Queen to d3, pawn to c5. Now f3 played by Hans. Very, very clean game. This is very, very clean. I mean, it's already kind of bad for black, I think, a little bit here, because your king is open. White can jump to e5. There's also f3 or f4 at some point. But very clean. b6 trade, knight e5, queen d3, c5. Again, if black takes on e5 here as well, there still is pawn to f3, trapping this rook in the center of the board here. So queen d3, c5 is played. Hans goes f3, c4, knight takes c4. Another brilliant move by Hans. Takes. I mean, if you try to take the knight here, I just take with the queen. Pawn supports the queen on e4. But after rook d4 takes, queen h7, and just rook e1, and I mean, white's just crushing it. Queen d7, queen f5. Another move by Hans that very nice move by Hans. Just forces queens off the board, and now it's just a simple end game, which Hans being close to 2600 is going to convert pretty much 100% of the time here. Rook d8, d5, rook d6, a4. Good move, by the way. He wants to go rook e4, target the pawn. If you play rook e4 right away, there's pawn to b5 here by black. So a4, a6, rook e4, b5, king c2, bishop f6, trade, b3. Another nice move by Hans. Breaks the pawn chain here. Atulio goes cb3. He could have tried maybe c3 here. It's the only try. Again, I think after rook b4, it's probably just lost, though. So he trades, goes here, rook e1, rook d7, d6. Another all-star move by Hans. If black doesn't take and he goes bishop f6, now you go rook d1, rook behind to pass pawn. The other rook here, it stops g4. It also cuts off the king, and now you'll just march the king up and win the game very cleanly. So bishop d6, f6. Another perfect move, threatens checkmate on e8. Rook d8, rook h1, king g8, rook h5, and actually, why did he do this? I thought rook d1 was cleaner. Maybe rook d1 is simple too with rook d4. Probably fielder's choice, honestly. So Hans goes rook h5, bishop f4. He has rook e1, and now Hans actually does a double threat. He has two threats. If the rook moves off, for example, you go checkmate, and if the rook stays, like you just move, then I go this way and I create the checkmate on h8. So very nice, a very nice lolly checkmate here. So king, or not lolly, sorry, this would be a lobster pincer. So king c2, rook d2, king b1, rook h2, and now Hans plays rook e8 with checkmate. What to say? I mean, this kind of, I think this game sort of, to me, it speaks volumes. Like, I don't know what to say about this game other than, like, this is why when people ask me or try to compare players, Hans is on a different level than whether it be Eric Rosen, whether it be Levy, Hans is just on a different level, because honestly, there's almost nothing I can critique in this game. It's just that good by Hans. Like, it's a nice long game, very, very good positional understanding. I mean, there's nothing I can critique. There's just nothing I can critique here at all. So yeah, there's just a very different, there's just a difference of quality. Very nice game by Hans. Okay, so we have one more game to go over. This is a game between Josh Postuma and Atulio Shetty. This game is d4, d5. Yeah, I mean, I don't know what you guys want me to say, but yeah, I mean, that's just a perfect game. Hans is going to be 2600 for sure. Whether he gets 2700 plus, who knows? But yeah, Hans is incredible. Okay, all right, let's go through the game between Joshua Postuma and Andrew Tang. So d4, d5, c4, e6, knight f3, knight f6, g3. So we have Le Catalan opening, the great opening of the separatists. So d takes c4. Bishop g2, knight c6, queen a4, bishop to d7, queen takes c4, knight to a5 played here by Andrew. I don't know what is knight a5. I'm trying to remember if this is actually a real line or if this is just garbage, because I can't remember this. Normally when you play like this is definitely not a main line. This is supposed to be considered a little bit dubious for sure. Very strange by Andrew. Normally you play like bishop b4 here, or you play like knight d5 lines. So queen c3, knight d5. Actually, already though, yeah, queen c3, knight d5, queen d. Isn't queen d3 better here with e4? I know this is a dubious line that Andrew plays here. So bishop b4, knight c3, castles, c5 played by Andrew. Okay, Joshua plays e4, logical move, attacking the knight on d5. Black takes on c3 after pawn takes. White gets this huge chain. Also, your bishop is trapped. You go here, I just eat the bishop. If you go knight c4, you go queen d3 and you hit the knight and the bishop. So he plays c takes d4 here. Queen takes d4, knight c6, queen c4 played here. So Andrew trades and goes bishop e7. And now here Josh finds a very good move. He plays pawn to e5 here. The idea being that you want to swing the queen and go for quick attacks like queen g4, and bishop h6 at some point. So I like this e5 move played by Josh here. So after e5, queen a5 is played here. Rook b1. Rook f8 played by Andrew. Good move, puts the rook on an open line. Also, he can retreat the bishop to f8 to guard against ideas like, say we get some random moves like this and this and this. You can go bishop f8 and support g7. So rook c8 is a good move. Queen e2 played by Josh. Rook c7, c4 protects the pawn from being captured. Rook c8, bishop g5. Ooh. What is bishop f8? I mean, I guess, okay, to be fair, computer says it's a good move. It feels too loose here, though, somehow. It feels too loose. It really, I don't like the theme of this. I probably would have played like h4 and bishop f4 here, honestly. I think I would have gone bishop f4, rook d1, and maybe knight h5 or h4. Feels too loose, but anyway, bishop f4, bishop g5, bishop f8, rook fd1, queen a6 by Andrew, queen e4, good move, trying to rotate the queen over, get some attacking ideas, maybe even rook d4, maybe move the bishop and go knight g5 and go for the mate on h7 as well. So knight a5 played here by Andrew. Bishop f1. Ooh, nice. And now actually white reroutes the bishop to create the battery. So bishop c6, queen g4, d6, knight d4. And this is getting very iffy for black. Black basically has to try to win here, break through before white's attack crashes through on the king side here. So bishop f8, bishop d3, knight c4, knight b5, queen b7, f3, knight takes e5. And so very nice moves from by Andrew here with queen b7. Yeah, white kind of goes wrong here. I think if I look at this from an attacking standpoint, I think what I would try to do is I'd probably try to do some sort of rook lift, like rook d4, queen h5, and rook g4, rook h4. Try to get more pieces near the black king, because this pawn is very brittle on c4. And there's also a diagonal issue as well. So I would try to go all in and be a true caveman and get a quick rook lift and a queen lift as well. So that's probably what I would have done. But anyway, knight d4 is played. Bishop a8, bishop d3, knight c4, knight b5, queen b7. Nice move by Andrew, because now you create the battery. And after f3, you take the juicer on e5, and now it's kind of all falling apart for white here. So bishop h7. Andrew won the game, though, right? King h7, check, king g8, knight c7, knight f3, and yeah, and the rest is pretty straightforward. King f1 takes, rook d8, knight g5. Again, open diagonal, weak white king. Pretty clean. Queen g5, queen h1, king e2, rook c2. Important, by the way, not to blunder. We don't want another call the ambulance, but not for me, because if you play queen b1, you get checkmated. There's rook takes f8, king f8, queen d8, checkmate. And it's an ice skater. If you go to h7, I go queen h5, which is also checkmate. So you don't want to do that. So after king e2, Andrew plays rook to c2, king to d3, and queen to e4. Checkmate here. So very nice win for Andrew Tang. I don't know why the notation says 0-1, you guys. What are you talking about? But very clean game by Andrew. Pretty good stuff. Again, I think the difference in this game was that there's one weakness Andrew could play against, and Joshua failed to understand like that basically the structure is so compromised that he needs to go all in for a kind of caveman attack on the queen side. Oh, it literally changed to 0-1. Okay. Fair enough. Anyway, yeah, okay. Anyway, so yeah, this was the other game I wanted to go over between Joshua and Andrew. Pretty good game from Andrew. He's back in the hunt. I think he's on 3.5 out of 5, and it's gonna be exciting to see Andrew back on the top boards as well. All right, you guys. So those are the 3 games for the recap that I wanted to do for right now. We're gonna be covering We're gonna be covering the round 6, which will be starting about 20 minutes from now, so we'll be covering that as well. Finally, not a roast of C9. No, I mean, if Andrew plays a good game, I'm very objective about it. It's more the hat that I put on. It's if my expectations are high versus just like looking at the game, um, and also what I expect, because like I've heard a lot of really good things about Christopher Yu, for example, so I do have very high expectations for him. So that's what I'd say. Levy is a very tough game. I think he is black against Criari. He is black against Nicholas Theodorou, 2567 FIDE rated player. Very, very unpleasant pairing. Of course, I played Nicholas many times. Very, very tactical and aggressive player. Plays a lot of unorthodox openings, so it's going to be a very difficult game for Levy. But again, that's why we play the game of chess. We'll see what happens. So this is it for the recap. We'll be covering about 20. Thank you to Effie for the prime. Thank you to Righteous Mule for the prime. Thank you to Reverend Patrick for the gifted sub. Christian Orem for the 5. Beach Volley for the 7. The Mac for the 11. Kinda Young Dave for the 4. Ultras for the 4. Thank you so much. Appreciate it. So yeah, so we'll see. We'll see how it goes. We'll be covering that in about 20 minutes. I'm gonna take a short break before we start a coverage up of that as well. And then I'll probably do some puzzles or something light for the next 20 minutes until we cover that. So I'll be right back, you guys.